Hey friends, Shanna Cramer here with Creatively Uncorked, and today we are going to paint this cute little witch. Today we're painting with acrylic paint, and the colors we're using today are going to be black, white, yellow, red. This is a simple little palette that is going to make all the colors we need for this witch. We are going to be practicing oranges, mixing all of them from scratch. Okay, so if you are new to this, Creatively Uncorked has been doing paint and sip parties all over Fargo, Moorhead, Minnesota, North Dakota, and now we're doing things online. So let's start out on this one with our background. Our acrylic paint, we are going to start with a little bit of yellow because all of our orange is going to be yellow and red. A little bit of red, more yellow, more red. I used transfer paper to transfer this image onto my canvas, and you can see it got a little wonky and spotty, so we're going to cover that right up. All right, so I've got my light orange here. This is yellow, mostly yellow, some little bit of red, a little bit of white. The white is to make your paint opaque. Otherwise, you're going to be able to see right through it. Like this, you can see the pencil lines right through it. So I'm going to make this witch glow, which means I'm going to put the lighter colors closest to the witch and the darker colors out toward the edges of the canvas. And right now I'm not too worried about the edges. I can still see through it. I can still see where the hat is. And I'm going to paint over that hat with black. So the black will cover any of this orange and any other color. So I'm really not worried about sticking too closely to painting inside the lines on this part. There, that got a little red, so I just put it to the outside of the canvas, and then we'll go back to, let's see, how's this looking? Still orange? Okay. Don't want it to get too red. Not quite yet. Yeah, there we go. Still doing the orange glow, so we're going to have the lighter colors closest to the witch. Okay. And reddish colors, reddish orange, more toward the outside. And I'm just doing a little crisscrossy painterly kind of a deal here. No water is being added yet at this point. There we go. Get some dark orange by adding red to the outer edges. There. You can only blend this paint while it's still wet, so paint your background fairly quickly and you'll be able to get a nice blend. Not too much red there. Let's wipe off that brush there and clean that off. There we go. All right, how's the rest of it looking? We can take a little more yellow, a little more white. There, how's that? We have a nice glow on the witch, do you think? I think so. This needs to be filled in a little bit, so I'll take a little bit more color right there. Okay, looking good. All right, I'm just going to pop that brush in the water. When you're painting with acrylic paint, it dries very quickly and it dries permanently. So while this is drying, which really is only going to take maybe 10 minutes, I'm just going to drop my paintbrush in the water. And when I need my paintbrush again, I'll just take it, give it a good swish, press your bristles down to the bottom of the cup, swish it around, and that should take most of the paint out of the bristles. And then you can just start in on your next color. So for this, let's see, we're going to do all of our oranges first, and then blacks are going to be last. We've got the background. Let's work on, how about some nice fire? Well, maybe before the fire, maybe we'll do her skin tone, because that one's going to be a little bit more challenging, I think. Okay, I'm taking my smallest brush. Taking mostly white, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, Does that look like skin tone to you? It's pretty darn close, isn't it? You can make that a little darker by adding a little bit of black to it if you like. And she's really dark. Let's see. Giving that brush a good rinse again. I'm going to go back to this original color that I had here because that was really pretty close. All right. So now I'm just going to fill in her little face. And being that this is kind of a cartoon character almost, we'll be outlining her with black. I'm going to paint right over that nose. I'll try and save the lines in the mouth, but no, I'm going to paint right over them. Okay. I think I'll be able to figure out where the mouth goes later. I can kind of see through this paint a little bit, not much, but I don't need to see much. Just going to fill in those ears a little. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Her face is filled in. Come down here to the neck, and we'll also fill in her neck. And here's an area where that dark skin tone can come in. I'll just try mixing a little bit more red in here. So it's just a little shade darker. There, I'll just take up a little bit of that black too, so it's just a little bit darker, okay? So I'll put that down on her neck and on the ears. So they're just slightly darker than the face. Okay, looking good. Rinsing that brush out. Let's work on her hair. Now her hair is going to be pretty reddish, so I'm going to take red, a little yellow, a lot of red. I'm going to take a touch of black. Ooh, that got really dark, didn't it? Okay, there we go. So now I have a really dark red. There, I'm just going to fill in some edges of her hair. No, it's not all going to be this dark, but I kind of want a defined area where her hair is. Okay, same thing. I'll just keep going. As long as I've got this color in my brush, I'll keep going and do all of the edges of all of the hair. Just kind of follow outside the ear there, a little flowing pattern where she might have some big curly flowing hair. All right, very nice. Now we'll go back to the oranges. So I'll take some yellow, some red, heck, a little bit of white. And let's mix that in. So I'm just going right over the top of that red. And some of this is going to blend in a little. Maybe a little too much, so I'm going to add some white to it so it has a little more staying power and can just kind of sit on top. There we go, much better. A little more white in that orange again. Now you can see if I mix up a really fairly light orange here, about the same color as the background, but when I add it to the red, it gets considerably darker. That's just something that's going to happen when you're blending paint. We're going with the wet into wet here. So we're putting wet paint on top of wet paint, and they blend. That's just how it works. There we go. Get some little kind of chunks of color and texture in there. We'll do the same on the other side. A little more white, a little more yellow. All right, and I know some people really enjoy painting hair, and if you just want to spend an hour painting that hair, you go right ahead. This is your painting. You make it how you want it. I'll give her some little curly wisps a little bit. Okay. I'm not going to go too overboard on it, so rinsing the brush. That line got a little dark. I'll just blend it a little. There, enough. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now let's take some mostly yellow, a little bit of white, yellow, white, tiny little dot of orange. This is going to be a really, really, really light orange. This is going in the moon. Here we go, just filling in the moon. Not worried about the edges being perfect again, because I'm going to be going over that with black. Okay, while I have that yellow, that is going to be, actually, I'm going to go down here and do the fire. But first, rinsing that brush again. I'll start with the brightest area of the fire, which is going to be mostly white, tiny touch of yellow. And that goes in the center of her cauldron. The hottest part, you would think. Taking a little bit more yellow into that mix. So now we have a slightly darker light yellow. And we can fill in some of the fire. Okay, not too much. And then now I'm going to take a little bit more red, a little bit more yellow. This would be kind of my darkest yellow on the fire. And then we're going to come back and just kind of, is that dark enough, do you think? Enough of a contrast? Maybe I'll just add a touch, a tiny little dot of red. A little more yellow. Okay, how about now? Got to be different from her skin tone. And this will be the orange part of the fire and the top, and fill in the rest of the cauldron. So the top of her witch's brew is going to be this orange color with fire coming out of it. Get your little brush wiggling so you have something fire-shaped. All right. Fire is another thing that you can paint on for hours and days, but try not to. The less work you do to the fire, the more realistic it will look. So just put your paint down and let it go. Rinsing that brush again. So we're getting down there to where we have mostly just gray parts left. Let's gray and black parts. So let's see, I want to take a look at her little eyes, which are actually gray. Like her eye color is gray. So I'm going to take white, black, mostly white. It's very light gray. Just going to fill in those eyes. Just going to fill in the whole pupil. There, because I can bring out highlights or anything I need to later. Rinsing that again. I'm going back to the skin tone, but adding a touch more red for her cheeks. Just add some big cheek colors to her. You decide what shape you want it. If the face color is already dry, this won't blend in. So you can just adjust that shape to whatever you're happy with and move on. Looks like I picked up a little bit of wet hair color there. Oh, better leave that hair alone. Okay. All right, leaving that alone. She's got kind of a dark spot here on her face where I was testing a different color, so I'll just lighten that a little. Okay, now leave it alone. Onward, let's take a look at that hat. So I'm switching to my medium round brush now, and I'll be using black paint. Black paint I have is a little bit thicker than the other colors. You just work with whatever paint you have. If you got your paint from us, you'll just need to water it down slightly to get it to flow more smoothly. Okay, so there I'm just mixing a tiny amount of water with that black paint, loading up the brush, and I'm going to try and get my elbow on the table so I don't dunk my wrist in the wet paint. And a little more paint. Load up the brush. All right, brush is loaded. See, you want to have your paint thinned out so that it flows smoothly enough to cover the canvas when you do this. And also, if you move the brush a little more slowly, it'll fill in all the pores of the canvas a little bit more cleanly. All right, filling in that hat. And I am just going to fill in the entire thing black, and then I'll come back and put the grays and light colors over it. But for now, I'm just filling it in with black. And try not to leave big globs of paint. Put a thin layer of paint down as long as it covers. You don't need to put on thick paint. Plus, if it's too thick on your canvas, it'll take a really long time to dry. When you come back to put your second and third layers on, your paint won't be dry yet. It'll blend. Now here's where we want to go a little more carefully around the moon, because these are the edges that matter. Because if you mess up on these edges and you want to go back and try to cover up your black paint later, you're going to have a mighty tough time doing that. Okay, she's got this top ledge of her hat. I'm just filling that in, filling the whole thing in, and I'll separate it into shapes later. That yellow is not dry. I'm going to have to make a second pass to fill that in with black. Okay, for now I'm going to leave it alone. Let's see, I'll do a zoom in for you. So you see that smudge there on the moon? Let it go. Let it dry. Come back and fix it later. That's the best move. Slightly more water mixing in the black paint. I'm just going to keep right on going. And this is one part where the biggest brush that you can get away with is always the best choice, because bigger brushes hold more paint and cover more canvas. All right, first layer of the hat is down. Let's move on. Gonna thin this out a little bit more because we have some tiny spaces to fill. I'm just working my way from top down, and this is simply to avoid sticking my hand in wet paint. That's it, that's all. And yes, these shapes are essentially connected because they're both black, but I want to be able to know where her collar is to fill it in later. And I might just be worrying too much about it. Paint around that fire. So you tell me, on future videos, would you rather do all the drawing yourself instead of tracing it? Because I can walk you through a drawing and come up with something that's reasonably close. So you let me know if you'd rather have the tracing template or if you'd rather do your drawing freehand. Okay, a little bit more water. Mix it into the paint on your plate and then bring it to the canvas. Now when I say load up your brush, I mean load up your brush, but don't overload your brush. Too much paint on your brush is going to cause problems. Yeah, go carefully around the edges, and you can be a lot less careful in the interior. Okay. Looking pretty good. I think I'm actually ready to switch to some light gray now. So I'll put my medium brush in the water, grab that tiny brush again. So the brushes are a small round, I have a medium round, and then a large, flat or filbert or whatever you want to use to cover in your background. So for gray, I'm just going to take a little more white, a little more black, about half and half, which will be darker, kind of a dark gray, but not too dark. So right there, I'm going to stripe on the inside of the hat. Can do a stripe right on the top of this top segment, right, that goes right through the moon on her hat. Also, it can be helpful to mix up enough gray to begin with that you don't have to try to mix that same color again later on. A little bit more gray. I'm going to go on the rim of her hat now. Okay, this is kind of a broken line. It doesn't have to fill in solid. Don't worry about that. I'm going to go on her collar here. Actually, I think that color is going to be, I can make that white. It'll make more sense. Little edge on the lip of the cauldron. And the biggest area of gray, which is going to be front of the cauldron. Mix a little more white with, or mix a little more water with it to make sure it flows smoothly. If you'd rather switch to your medium brush, you can. All right. Any place else that we might want some gray? I think it's looking pretty good. So small brush, back to black. There, and I'm just filling in her collar, but leaving a white edge. Same on both colors. There. Okay, so now she's got a collar, she's got a fire, she's got hair. All right, we're going to take that black, be really careful with it, and we're going to add her eyebrows. Let's see, this time I'm going to slide the canvas up a little so I can put my fist on the table, so I can lean my arm on my fist and then not stick my hand in wet paint. I'm going to touch up that moon a little bit first, and then eyebrow. And another eyebrow. Okay, while we're at it, let's go in here and add a few lips. Now this one, you should still be able to trace that. There we go. Give her cute little witch lips. Little bottom of her lips there. Okay, now try to get a thin edge on your round brush if you can by rolling it in the paint and sharpening that tip. And I'll do a little boop, boop on her cute little witch nose. Now we're down to the final details. If you have a teeny tiny brush, now is the time to use it. I'll see what I have over here. It looks like this is going to be the tiniest brush I have. Let's see if it works. So dunk that in the water, rolling it in the black paint. When we're working with fine edges, we need to have some thinned out paint. So thin it out with some water. There we go. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of eyeliner. Keep it thin. There we are. And, oh, less paint, small amount of paint. Okay, and I'll just do a little outline on her eye. So I'm leaving the highlight, and I'm leaving the gray color of her eye. Gotta be kind of careful about this, again, with the sticking the hand in the wet paint thing. There, I'm putting my pinky down. There's a dry spot right here. I'll put my pinky there. And that'll hold my hand steady. Okay, now we've got some highlights. Now let's do some lashes. Is that better or worse? It's always going to be easier to draw the lashes on one eye than the other. That's just the way it works. Try and get your makeup even on both sides. Some of you know what I'm talking about. All right, how's that looking? I think it's looking pretty good. One little touch-up I think I want to do. Maybe. Actually, I have some highlights in here that I want. So back to the white paint. Still use a tiny brush. You can use your small brush if you want, but I'm going to add some highlights there. Let's see, where else does she need highlights? Just going to have some highlights on her hair. A little here, a little there. Just got some cute little boop, boop. Some little witchy bright dots. I want to blend that edge a little. It's kind of bugging me. Okay. All right. Do a little there and there. Just want some highlights. And just a couple little highlights. Highlights always just make the whole picture just seem a little bit, just makes it pop. Just makes it more interesting. Looking good. Should we give her some sparkles? We can do some sparkles up here. Okay, so for these sparkles, I'm doing like a plus. And then just filling in a little bit of those where the corners are. Yeah, kind of like that. That's pretty cute. Here's a dark spot that accidentally happened because I was sticking my hand in wet paint. So that's how I know where my sparkles go. Cover up that dark spot there on my canvas. Genius, right? Nobody actually paints birds on purpose. Birds happen because you're trying to cover up something in your sky. Dot of wet paint or whatever. And that's also how sparkles happen. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I think I'll let that be. I think I can do a better job on that moon. So I'm just going to take a little bit of black paint and just kind of fix the edge there a little. And this is your painting. You can fix away on any parts you want to that you want to fix. What do you think? Did she need some bats? All witches need bats, right? So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go kind of like an M, kind of like, you know, when you paint birds. But with a little gap in between. And that gap is for the little head and a little spiky ears, which can be done in 2 little brush strokes. And then the bat's got a tail and a spike and a spike. Yeah? And a spike and a spike. That's all you have to do, and then just fill it in. What do you think? One more bat? Or is that enough? I kind of feel like that's enough. Well, I think she's a pretty darn cute witch. What do you think? Okay, let's call it. Here we are, cute witch. Thanks for painting along with me. I will see you next week. CreativelyUncorked.com. If you want to join the membership, CreativelyUncorked.com. Click on members. And you can paint as many of these paintings as you want. There are hundreds online.